My grandfather used to talk a whole lot about the Depression, and he often stated that during the Depression that money was real tight. So he wasn't hungry, but some of the other things like clothing, his family didn't have many clothes or anything like that. They didn't have much money to buy them. And he stated that his son was barefooted and he wanted him to go to school, and he didn't have shoes. And he found a nickel, and with that nickel he went and bought his son a pair of shoes. My grandmother, she stated that she was mad at President Hoover at the time, and she felt at that particular time that the work she had to do wasn't much better than the work that her grandparents had to do, and you know, they were slaves, and she said that wasn't much better than slave labor.
The stock market crashed on October 29, 1929, forever known as Black Tuesday. The Great Depression that followed put 15 million people out of work. Among them, African Americans were hit the hardest. African Americans were hurt more than whites by the Great Depression because white anger at the Depression was turned into racism. Job loss was one of the results of the Great Depression that hit African Americans the hardest. By 1932, around 50% of African Americans had lost their jobs. However, the white unemployment rate was half that of blacks. African Americans often lost their jobs to make place for white workers. This resulted in many African Americans losing their jobs and homes. During the Great Depression, soup kitchens were one of the ways that poor people could get food, but very often these soup kitchens excluded blacks, or the soup kitchens were segregated. This meant that African Americans were malnutritioned more than whites and could barely sustain themselves. The Negro was born in depression. The American white man has been superior so long, he can't figure out why he should come down. The Great Depression also changed African Americans' political views. Before the Great Depression, many African Americans were loyal to the Republican Party, but as the Depression worsened and their situation became much worse, they began to shift towards the Democratic side, who supported their views much more.
Once I built a tower, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime?